Well, good morning. You're watching Morning at NTV. Thank you so much for joining us. The start of the week with so much good news. Congratulations to our Miss Uganda for great representation at Miss World. And I'm guessing it's also, you are part of the representation because you voted. Let me be honest, even I voted. Even I went through that voting because it's always good for us Ugandans to be proud of some success that has happened. And speaking of success, also one of the writers we have had here on the show, Harriet Anena, winning joint prize for the Wallace Sayinka Literature Prize. So well done. We told you, support Ugandan writers and things will come out of it. So today is the 10th and it's the International Day of Human Rights. Well, we started the 16 days of activism on the International Day for Violence Against Women, I think 25th November, then all the way till today. So when you say activism, I mean, I've introduced you to activists here before and said, these are the voices where you and I are afraid to speak out, where you and I are afraid to put our voices onto something, they come out boldly to defend you and I. So why the discussion against violence against women? Why is it women, someone said? Maybe because they're weaker, maybe why? Why is the discrimination against women more highlighted and more bold? This year was extra different. We'll talk about that. Joining me is no stranger to the show, Flavia Karole, an activist. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Flavia. Good morning to you.
This year was special, especially when it came to talk about sexual violence,
yes,
sexual harassment.
Yes.
I'm saying that because it wasn't just a Ugandan problem.
Yeah.
It became a world problem, and I think that's when people said, okay, maybe we should talk about it. As if it has never happened before, right?
Yes.
As if there's been no sexual harassment till 2018. We started with the Me Too movement, then Vogue, everybody started talking about it. People went to court, there were trials of this. I think even in South Africa it's happening. I'm not quite sure what 2018 has looked like in that sphere for us women.
Oh, well, good morning, viewers. Flavia, that's a very interesting question you raise, because most of the times when we have the 16 days of activism every year, because it's annual, most people think, is this the only time we have to discuss about violence? But then you have to ask yourself, how many times does violence happen to a woman or a girl out there? Yes, it happens to men, because some men will be asking, doesn't violence happen to us?
Why just women? They did ask that. Why just women?
It does. It happens to men, but it is on a lower side in comparison to the women. So the 16 days of activism mainly focus on the women because of the different issues that the woman goes through. And when we look at violence, we are not only looking at physical violence, we are looking at the economic violence, we are looking at the sexual violence, which is very, very prominent and rampant. We are looking at the bride price related violence. There's even political violence against the women, because lately we have seen so many women getting violated in the political arena and getting undressed. Yes. Take examples of Honorable Nabila, take examples of Turinawe Ingrid, take examples of the women that were arrested with Honorable Chagulanyi in the Arua sagas, the way they were treated, some were bleeding, you know. So there is so much violence that happens around women and needs to be highlighted, needs a time where we shine the torch specifically on that for the entire nation and entire world to hear those stories, to know what is happening, but also to galvanize action to end this violence, especially against women. So these 16 days give us that leeway to freely talk about those issues, but also to give women who have undergone that any kind of violence to speak out. Because Flavia, when you speak about something, you get a lot of relief. You get healing.
It's no longer a burden to you. It's
no longer a burden to you, but you're also encouraging so many other people out there to share their stories and to know that in case this happens, this is how I react to this, so that I don't go through the same scenarios. So this is the time when we focus on all those issues.
So I was looking at an article from 2011, right? And they're talking about the 16 days of activism. And even then they said, we're still pushing for the campaign to eliminate or reinforce the elimination of violence against women. And I'll be honest, it sounds like we have the same sentences but different years. You know, it sounds like 2011 has been pushed to 2018 and it's the same conversation. But going back to start with violence against women, I know someone said that part of what 2018 did for us, Flavia, is that it highlighted that the men aren't the only ones who are, you know, doing this to women, especially because you've broken down
Yeah.
the violence. You've said it's not just physical,
Yeah.
it's not just sexual, it's
No.
also emotional and all of that. It is me coming out to say something and Flavia not defending me, not understanding me, not being on my side. That's also bad. That's also part of the reason why women don't talk.
Yeah.
We don't have women on our side. Do you see any changes in that? Is it because we're speaking out more? Do you see more women supporting each other?
I think women, very many women are actually supporting fellow women. In fact, I really hate it when people keep referring to this PhD syndrome. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Pull her down syndrome.
Yes.
I just don't like it because we work with so many women in the communities, women in civil society, women in politics that are supporting fellow women, that are encouraging women to speak out, that are empowering women to use their voices to be able to break the silence and break these glass ceilings all around us, because there is more that we can do, and it's about uniting. If we do not unite as women, there's already so much that we are working against, you know, in the community. So this is the time I really believe that women like me, women like all those people who are working in these areas, in the different civil society sectors, the different political, the different activist sectors, and so many other sectors, are already doing so much to speak up against violence and to encourage people to speak out against violence at work, in communities, in homes, in schools, everywhere. So, yes, women are united and women are helping each other and supporting each other and giving space. It's very important that we get the space. As women, we share that space to be able to share stories, to be able to share lessons, but also to give each other advice on how we can move forward in this very uncomfortable situation that you are always in.
So I asked you if you've been part of the 16 days and said, yes, I had to. It was part of some activities. Talk to us about what your experience has been in the 16 days, what you've seen, what you've heard, the surprises.
I know. So it's very interesting. We organized the community dialogue about 16 days of activism, especially gender-based violence, in one of our communities back in Kasanda district called Buswa. And here we are basically highlighting some of the forms of violence. You know, very many rural women undergo violence without even knowing that this is violence, you know. So first of all, we had to break it down for them what violence is. Then we had to hear from them what forms of violence they have gone through. This dialogue included men and women, boys and girls. It was mixed because when you're talking about violence, the perpetrators are mainly men, but you also need them to be part of the conversation so that they can know how they can be, they can change and become change agents eventually. This 16 days of activism has focused a lot on the He for She campaign. Men speaking out
on
against, on women's issues, against violence, but also supporting the women. You can give emotion and all that. So what we realized mainly in that experience, in that dialogue, was the fact that so many people are unaware of what violence is. So many people are biased about women's rights and why they need to like, they call it kubibita, why they need to make the women so pronounced, especially.
We're getting special treatment.
Exactly, because this is a patriarchal setting we are dealing with, and these are social norms that and customs that have been there for years. So telling them that when you get back home and you ask for food from your wife, when there's no food because she doesn't have money, you did not leave money, and you see the situation around, you don't just have to beat her. You know, you have to sit together and make decisions together that are going to help the family, you know. So it was very interesting to hear.
It sounds like a very small example, but this is what is
what is happening. Those are the things that are causing violence on ground. Men will just tell you the woman doesn't want to kneel for me, and that is a cause of beating, physical beating. In the communities, they will tell you the woman wore a pair of trousers and that is a source of violence. So the things that bring about this violence in communities, women were telling us the men don't even want them to go to the market. You know, like your village is around my village is Buteka, and Buswa is very close to Buteka, but it's like coming from NTV to go down there to the roundabout, and the man tells you, even if there is a market that day, I will buy you the knickers you need, I will buy you the sanitary towels, I will buy you the the brass, because at the end of the day, if you go to the market, there's a man who is going to look at you, admire you, and may lure you into leaving me. I don't want that. And when the woman says, no, I have these few tomatoes to sell, at least let me just put them along the road, that's a source of violence. You either leave my home, you're not staying in my home, or you get beaten.
Yeah.
So these feel like small issues, but when you're having conversations with the women, these are critical issues in the communities and in the areas.
It's their life.
You know, it's their life. They tell you, I cannot even own a phone. When I own a phone and the man sees it, he will think every man is going to call me, and I am sleeping with those men or anything. Even smiling along the road with another man who is not your husband.
Imagine.
So you see that there are so many broad examples of violence, and these things, people keep quiet over them. But the more you speak about them, because what we do is to encourage women to speak out, but also to encourage women to report these cases. Because you see, in the villages here, Flavia, in town, I can easily get married. And when I get married, I know what my rights are. I'm aware of what I should do and what I shouldn't do. But I also have limitations. And once we get to those limitations, I can easily say, you know what, I think I can walk out.
Yes.
But in the communities, we have sengas who are telling the women, Neda fomba, ebintu twabirya da, you know, like, ebintu by'omusajja twabirya, tetusobola kubizzaayo, tetulina, the man's things already eaten, the bride price and all that. What are you doing leaving the man's home? You need to stay in there until the woman is killed. That's when you start wondering, what the hell were we doing inside
Why
there?
are we having conversations when we're burying this woman versus when she's still alive?
So it is very broad. It is very broad, and there is always a reason and the time to unite against violence, against women. There's always we always need to speak out against this, and the women need to be represented as well at the policy levels and also at the law formulation. Yes, we are, Flavia. We are. But when you look at the numbers, they are very grotesque. How? In a parliament of 449 members of parliament, we have only 154 members who are women. And if these 154, we didn't have the affirmative action seat of the women,
of them, there's a good number that wouldn't
would have only 19 women in parliament. 19. And this is the era where we say women are speaking out for themselves, women know their rights, women are in all decision-making positions. But if it wasn't for that affirmative action seat to give us the 154, we would have only 19 women represented. In a country whose population is 52% women.
At policy level, it's, whether we like it or not, at some point it's about numbers.
Yes.
You see, it's not where you say, oh, that's a quality there, even if there are 3 quality women leaders. At some point, it's really about numbers. When you come down to voting for an issue, you're going to need the numbers. Okay, so even if we send in the best 4, we will still not be at an advantage. But in terms, you said something about reporting, and I was a bit triggered there because we've had very many conversations about reporting. And first of all, what you just said about the bride price, many women were discussing here and saying that in some villages, you have high numbers of young girls getting married off.
Yes.
15, 16.
Yes. That is high.
It sounds, you know, when you're in Kampala, it sounds like,
and 12.
What is that?
Yeah.
This thing still happened in 2018. You'll be very shocked when you just go just outside of Kampala. Even here in Kampala, but that might even still be happening.
Yeah.
Young girls, you're saying 12 and 13, which for example, I thought was 15, 16. But why? They're saying poverty.
Yeah.
Or they're saying, you know, the man decided in the home he's a leader, so his girls can be married off at this age. But that reporting thing, a lot of women would not bother speaking out because they say, cutting in police, Then the woman is saying, only that, just a slap. You are complaining. Why? Because maybe she's also, because somebody said, why don't we put women, you report to a woman police officer. But Flavia, if I'm reporting to a woman police officer who has worse problems in her home, how is she going to help me? So I don't know what you've heard in terms of, you know, cases reported. Are women comfortable reporting? Is there action taken after they report?
Okay. Thank you, Flavia, for that question. Let me just tell you one thing. An experience that I got just last week. The members of Kassanda Town Council, chairpersons of all the villages in Kassanda Town Council, just saw in last week. However, what I noticed very clearly is over 35 chairpersons in the town council only one woman was in that town council that saw in as a chairperson. Only one. But these issues we are talking about mainly affect women. If a woman is battered in her home, she's going to go to the nearest person she's going to report to is a village chairperson, LC1 chairperson. But how is she going to report to an LC1 chairperson who is male, who probably is also battering his wife, and is going to tell her that, what are you reporting? So these are the situations we are in. Women are faced with issues and they want to report, but you go to the police station, you go to all the actors where you can easily report. The police, nearest leader. The nearest leader, the village chairpersons, the district councillor, all these people. But at the end of the day, because society has constantly pumped it into our heads that violence is normal.
Be strong.
Be strong. You can't cry over such issues. Which man doesn't move around, doesn't philander around? You know, like, because of that, even the attitudes our leaders and the police officers report to give us adjust that. But then we have a lot of work we are doing around with police officers to engage them. First of all, to be empathetic to these people, to know and understand that these situations are either a do or die affair. They can easily lose their lives, or they, in case any of this thing is taken trivially, but you're also training them on how they can help the woman start something. How do you move out of home? So how do you transition from I have been a married woman, because so many married women in the rural areas mainly depend on the men, their husbands, for
and that's
everything.
Another reason to stay.
Yes. So most of them say, so if I leave him, Nginda Kolachi, what am I going to be able to do if I leave him? So then we are empowering them economically to be able to start things themselves, to be able to sustain themselves, not to look at the man as the sole provider of everything.
Even for the children.
You know, even for the children. We have also encouraged women to always, before you leave, like, plan ahead. But there are also shelters we have established in various homes, so that as you move away from that home, for that time, you have somewhere to stay as you prepare to be to stand independently. So we are looking at all these things, and it's huge. Except that I will just talk about the unpaid care work, because we are mainly focusing around the unpaid care work in these 16 days of activism. So many women out there are doing unpaid care work. What is unpaid care work? The domestic work, washing clothes, cooking, feeding, cleaning the house. All these things that women wake up and do that occupy your time from morning to sunset, and you go to bed extremely tired, but they ask you, Okolachi, and you say, Tewali. They ask you, what do you do? And you say, hey, do nothing. Meanwhile, you wake up at 5
when some women say I'm a housewife,
until 8
like,
p.m.
You do nothing.
Exactly. And you say you do nothing, but you do all these things. You've basically sustained the home, you've sustained everyone around you, you have sustained other people around you. But because this is not work paid for, it doesn't fit in the box of formal,
you don't value
formal work. So there is no salary attached to it. People don't value it, and so you yourself also don't value it.
That's true.
So we are speaking out, and we are trying to see that this is recognized. We are trying to see that this work is reduced. We are trying to see that it is redistributed in homes. A man will want a woman who is going to sexually satisfy them at night when that woman is fresh. But if you have a woman who is extremely tired, because of all this unpaid care work they've been doing, mopping, cleaning, digging, farming, etc., etc. By the time they get to the bed, they are going to be so tired, they won't want you to touch them.
Is the answer more on the pay for it, or the answer more of redistributed so I don't have to do all of it?
It is a combination, Flavia. It is a combination. Yes, let's attach a price to it. And this is something already Uganda Women's Network is working towards pushing, and other women's rights organizations to get into policy. And I'm happy to report that there's progress being done. But then we are also looking at reduction and redistribution. Let the man be able to help around the home.
Or provide the support to help the woman. I think that makes sense. 16 days of activism actually end today on Human Rights Day. We're saying violence against women should end. The question around why it's women, she's already explained, they're more vulnerable, the numbers are higher than it is for men. And this year's campaign, outside of unpaid work, was the fact that it's he for she. involving the men, educating the men, telling the men what you didn't even know.
Yes.
There's need to support women and women's issues. And if you've been on the wrong side of it, you need to change. Quick one as we wind up. Is this kind of activism, this kind of conversation, are they sustainable in getting us a solution in the future? Full solutions, actually.
Oh, yes. We have, we are looking at very sustainable solutions in the future. And I am happy to report, I can't report it right now, but I am happy to know that these conversations and the laws that we are putting in place, including the Domestic Violence Act that was already established, these are some of the things that have helped us reduce some of these numbers. And yes, we still have challenges implementing these laws. We still have challenges of people being unaware of the violence around them and how they can overcome it. But when we look at the response from the people, according to the conversations we've had and the solutions we are looking at, they will be more sustainable. They are going to be more sustainable, and they are going to help us reduce the violence against women immensely. So yes, I encourage everyone out there, especially the women and girls who are undergoing sexual violence, who are undergoing physical violence, do not suffer silently. Speak out. These days we have something called, a slogan we call people power, and we are telling you that please use the power that is bestowed upon you by the Constitution to fight for your rights, to know what is right for you, and to ensure that you break the silence on violence against women.
That's Flavia Karule, an activist. I don't need to tell you anymore on that. That's it for the end of the 16 days of activism, actually, as we celebrate them. But of course, the discussion and conversation still goes on. That's it for Morning at NTV. Have a good day.